Let's call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order on August 25th, 2022. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Schoeneman?
Here.
Commissioner Lemon?
Here.
Commissioner Shea?
Here.
Mayor Donches?
Here. All right, so before we begin, let me mention that the Nashua Back to School event is today, so I need to leave at 4:20, but if the meeting is still going, Vice Chair Moriarty can take over, and
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sure do a very good job. So item one is approval of the agenda. Commissioner Moriarty.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item three, Commissioner Lemon.
Motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of July 28th, 2022.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We now have public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the committee, the board? All right. We now have a presentation from Dark Skies, and I assume Gloria, Kathy, someone. So you need, of course, to give your name and address.
Absolutely. So my name is Kathy Hirsch. Hi, everyone. And I reside at 16 Mountain Laurels Drive, Unit 101, Nashua, New Hampshire. I am on the board of directors for the Brian S. McCarthy Memorial Foundation. And I have with me actually here is Gloria McCarthy, Brian's wife, and also my granddaughter, Riley Britton, and Matt Marula, who is from the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. So Gloria asked me if I would look into a dark sky designation for Udicky Park, and because of my involvement with the city, both as community development director and board of aldermen over the years. And so I agreed to do that because it's Gloria asking, but I really knew nothing about what I was getting into. So she suggested I contact the New Hampshire Astronomical Society, which I did, and several people responded who live in Nashua and or frequent Udicky Park as a dark sky place, in Nashua. So I now understand a lot more about dark skies, which Matt is going to do the presentation, so I won't say any more about that. We did meet with the mayor and Lisa and Alderman Jetty, maybe in May, I guess, and presented that to just see where everybody might be at with it, and it seemed to get a good reception. So with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Merlin.
Hello. As she says, my name is Matthew Morella. I live here in Nashua. You need the address?
Yes, that would be
209 Millwright Drive.
okay.
I've lived in Nashua for just under 35 years. The 15-second bona fides is that I have a degree in astrophysics from University of Arizona. I've been involved in astronomy in one way or another since I was about 5. I'm former president of the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. I used to write software for big observatories in Australia, Chile, and the Canary Islands. I now work in cloud computing because it actually pays money. I'm a contributing author to the Oxford Astronomy Encyclopedia. I think that's about it. So I know a few things about the night sky. So this presentation that I'm going to give here, I apologize to those who've already sat through it once, was originally put together for the city of New Boston, who several years ago came into some extra money and wanted to build a sports field, and wisely thought maybe we should think about not ruining our night skies as we do it. So they asked the New Hampshire Astronomical Society, and I put together this presentation for them. It's been modified a few times since. So the things that I'm going to go through, a little bit about darkness and light, some pictures of the Earth from space, what's wrong with light, and what's good and what's bad lighting. So for most of human history, we were in the dark. Now you can see quite a lot by moonlight, and actually quite a lot by starlight, if there's no artificial light and your eyes are fully dark adapted. So the first the first artificial lighting came along fairly recently, only about 300 years ago. And when I mentioned moonlight, you can tell that moonlight was a major factor for working at night for most of human history because of the folklore names that are given to each full moon. There's 12 full moons in the year, and each one has a name. The May moon is called the corn moon because that's when you did your corn planting. August is the sturgeon moon because that's when the sturgeon were running and it was good time to go fishing. And the two most famous folklore names, September and October, the harvest moon and the hunter's moon, because that's what you did during those times. Now, of course, the new moon happens every 28 days, and our months are 31 days, so every now and then you'll get 2 full moons in a month. So when that happens, the second one is called?
Blue moon.
Blue moon. And how often is once in a blue moon?
Twice a year.
About 2.5 years. Happens once every 2.5 years that you get 2 full moons in a month. So if you have something that's going to happen in roughly 30 months, you can say it'll happen once in a blue moon. Okay, so street lighting started about 300 years ago with oil lanterns on top of poles in England. It's an understatement to say it's gotten a little out of control since then, and the list is displaying up there. And it's not just the amount of lighting, but the quality of lighting. In fact, almost all badly done lighting is not done with any intent. It's generally ignorance. People just don't know any better. So here's what the United States looked like in the 1960s from space. The brighter the color, the brighter the light. As you can see, most of the country still had a lot of good solid darkness. In the 1970s, it looked like this. In the 1990s, and in the 2020. So today, certain parts of Nevada, New Mexico, Montana, that's the only true darkness left. The rest of the country is pretty much bathed in light. I can tell you that here, we have local light pollution, which is lights that are near you, and we also have regional light pollution. So if even all the lights were off in Nashua, you have a big sky glow to the south from Boston. And when you start to move north to get away from Boston, by the time the Boston sky glow diminishes, the one from Montreal is visible. Now, it's not just the United States. This is what Europe looks like. Massively lit up. And the whole world. And on this one, I didn't bring my laser pointer. In the middle of Siberia, northern Siberia, where there's nothing, there's a huge lit up section. And that's actually the world's largest oil refinery. Oil and natural gas refinery, and they light those up quite brightly. So currently 80% of the world's population lives in areas of significant light pollution. There's really only 7 areas in the entire planet that are still truly dark. Canada, the Amazon, the Sahara Desert, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central China, the Himalayas, and Central Australia. That's it. So that's the big oil refinery in was it Ragovoi? Anyway. So light, a lot of light isn't necessarily bad. It'd be hard to make the case that in this picture, the light indicates bad because that's China and South Korea. In between is the economic development of North Korea. It's quite good for astronomy, but quite bad to live. So it's not that light for nighttime activities is universally bad, it's just that there's much more than we actually need, and most of it is implemented very, very poorly. So what's wrong with light? Specifically, what is wrong with too much light at night? And I'll go through 5 different aspects. First one is astronomy. And the important thing to understand about astronomy is a common misconception about telescopes. Telescopes used on the ground are very different than telescopes used to look into the sky. That's because when you're looking at something on the ground, you're trying to make it closer. Now, if you go outside on a summer night like tonight, there's an object that you can barely see naked eye. You can't from downtown Nashua, but if you get out the street, out a ways, it's called the Andromeda Galaxy. It's another galaxy completely separate from the Milky Way, and it's barely visible naked eye. It's 150 million light years away. That is light traveling at 186,000 miles per second, 186 million miles per second, takes 150 million years to get here from there. So the light that's hitting your eye and when you go out at night, it left the Andromeda Galaxy before dinosaurs were thought of. And it's been traveling all that time. You can't make that closer with a telescope. Doesn't matter how big your telescope is. It's far, far, far away. What you can do is make it brighter. So when we look at things on the ground, we want to make something closer. Magnification is the important thing. When we're looking in the sky, it's not magnification, it's light gathering, making the image brighter. Good example, there is the Andromeda Galaxy, and that's a long exposure photograph. That object in the sky, as you see it right there, it's as wide as 6 full moons, side by side. That's huge. But when you look at it, it doesn't look like that. It looks like, takes a moment for the slide, that. It's a tiny little smudge. It's not that it's small, it's that the only part you can see is the very, very brightest part in the center. So the important thing about telescopes are to make things brighter, not to make them bigger. Now, I mentioned long exposure photographs. Your human eye is a snapshot. It only takes an instantaneous picture of what the light that's hitting it. Whereas a camera, you can open the shutter and leave that shutter open as long as you want and gather more and more and more light on the film or on the CCD chip. So we constantly use this in astronomy. So this is the Orion Nebula. It's a beautiful thing that you can see in the naked eye. It doesn't look like this naked eye. In the winter sky. It's not visible now. And this is a 30-minute exposure. So someone left the camera open for 30 minutes to gather all that light. If you only look at it, if you only leave the camera open for 10 minutes, it fades a little bit. A little bit of the color is lost, a lot of the detail is lost. These are all the same scale. I'm not making the object smaller. 3 minutes, looks like that. 30 seconds, 10 seconds. 10 seconds is the longest exposure that I can do from Nashua. Anything longer than that, and the image is overwhelmed by all the lighting, all the street lighting. And just to compare, that's a 10-second exposure to a 30-second exposure. A lot of difference. Okay, back to the Andromeda Galaxy. We can't get a picture like this of the Milky Way, our own galaxy. We've not even gotten to the next star, let alone outside the galaxy. But this galaxy happens to be just about the same shape as the Milky Way. It's a little bigger, but it's comparable. So we can imagine this is the Milky Way, and if it is, that's where we are. We're about 2/3 of the way out on the edge of one of the spiral arms. And how can you tell that from where we sit? Well, you can look up at the night sky from a truly dark place. That's how you get a sense of where you are. This is a picture I took on a trip in 2017 coming back from the total solar eclipse in Oregon. And this is a place called Grasslands National Park in southern Saskatchewan. And if it looks like absolutely nothing, that's exactly what it is. But at night, it looks like that. And this is a fairly short exposure looking straight up. And what you see running across the center there, that big band of white, is our own Milky Way galaxy seen from the inside. Now, every point of light in that entire picture except one is inside our own Milky Way galaxy. The stars that you see above and below are stars that are above and below us in the spiral structure. When we look along the spiral itself, you see that band of light. And the dark areas are dust lanes in between the spiral arms. The actual areas of light are just billions and billions of stars. And there's one little smudge in the lower left. And that little smudge in the lower left is the Andromeda Galaxy, the one thing that's not in the Milky Way. So from a truly dark location like this, with the naked eye, you can see between 2,500 and 5,000 stars. Too many to count. Move to a suburban area, and the night sky looks like this. You can see between 100 and 300 stars. 80% of the children growing up today, this is their view of the night sky. They've never seen the Milky Way. Move to an urban area, and it drops to about 5 stars. Can't even see them with the lights on in the room. When an earthquake hit Los Angeles in 1994, it knocked out power for about a week. And residents actually called 911 to report a giant white cloud in the sky. It was the Milky Way. They'd never seen it before. Okay, so much for sense of place. Humans. These things that are on this slide are from the National Institutes of Health. I'm not going to read them out, but the important thing is too much light at night does affect humans. There are numerous examples. Another way in which you can be affected by night lighting, you don't have to be outside. There's something we call light trespass, which is like light pollution. Cases like this. Now, imagine that's a bedroom window on the second floor there. How well are they sleeping at night with that light shining right in their face? There's another example here. And it's common in urban areas to have blackout shades because a city like New York is never dark. But it's a little sad that we now have these situations in places like Nashua where you need blackout shades because the street lighting or other lighting, advertising, whatever, is making it so it's never truly dark in your bedroom. You open the window and you see bright lights. As far as plants and animals, light affecting wildlife, there's a whole bunch on these slides. Again, I'm not going to read them, but there's 2 slides worth here, and it took a lot of work to narrow it down to that. There are literally hundreds, possibly thousands of documented studies of how light adversely affects wildlife. The sea turtle one is an interesting one. In Florida, where they have sea turtle sanctuaries along the beach, they have to put in blackout shades and have no lighting on the side of hotels facing the beach because the turtles will see those lights, think it's the sea, go the wrong direction, get eaten by birds. And there's more. Frogs, moths, nocturnal predators, prey that use darkness for cover, all sorts of things. Okay, a bit about security. We're going to cover this more when I get to the good and bad lighting section, but there's never actually been a successful study showing that light improves security. There's actually been a couple studies that show the opposite. There was one lengthy study in England that showed where they increased the lighting in certain towns and not in other towns and compared the crime statistics. Crime went up where the lighting was better. They don't know why. There was a study in Chicago where they took certain neighborhoods and improved the lighting in alleys. Crime went up. And their conclusion, they said they don't know if it simply made it easier for bad actors to see their victims or if possibly the crime rate was the same but better lighting allowed more reporting. They don't know which. But the idea that you improving light improves security is a falsehood. It seems like it should be right. It's never been proven. Okay, good and bad lighting. The poster child for bad lighting is the 175 watt mercury vapor Cobra headlight. These used to be ubiquitous. They are being rapidly replaced by LEDs, some good, some bad. The design of the fixture is really the problem, and you can get the bad design both in LED and in mercury vapor. The problem is that it sends light in the direction you want, but only about 20% of its light goes in the direction you want. About 65 to 75% is glare. And glare is basically the definition of light that goes directly into your eye instead of where you want it. All you have to do is drive in the rain at night, and all the light shining off the road and the light hitting your face. What happens is when the light is able to hit your face directly, it causes your eyes to adapt. They close down, the pupils close down because it thinks it's bright out, which makes it harder to see at night. This is a bad idea. And then about 10 to 15% of the light from these lights actually goes up. It's actually lighting the bottoms of birds, utterly wasted. And so on a 175 watt fixture, typically only 35 watts is going where you want it. That means the other wattage is wasted energy, wasted money, wasted electricity. The wattage of these lights, the mercury vapor types, which fortunately we're getting rid of, the mercury vapor types, the wattage actually increases over time and the light output decreases. Municipalities generally love these lights because they generally never burned out. But they weren't doing you any favors by not burning out. After they'd been in place for 20 years, they were now consuming 250 watts and putting out only 35 watts of light. Okay. Other typically bad fixtures, The one to the left is a completely unshielded fixture. These used to be commonly sold at Home Depot as outdoor security lights, and people put them on their barns and houses and garages. The problem, of course, there's no shielding of any type. The light goes in every direction. And decorative lighting, like the one on the right. The problem with decorative lighting, the light is intentionally going in all directions because it's meant to be decorative. But then they also want to use it to light up the ground, so they put a huge bulb in it. Decorative lighting, if it's meant to be decorative, should be low wattage. You should have other lights to light up the ground. And just because we were talking about Utica Field, this is a good example of that type of decorative lighting. This picture was taken at night. Look how bright everything is. This is Maplewood Shopping Center. It's less than a mile from Utica Field, and it has about 30 of these lights, and they are really bright. So that's Utica Field, and that's Maplewood. And there's another picture of that area, and you can see, if you look at that light there, you can see that it's really lighting up the side of the building well, but it's not lighting up the ground under it at all. So it's sending basically all of its light where it's not wanted. And you can fix this. This is an example of a full cutoff decorative fixture. This fixture actually has LEDs mounted in the bottom, shining up. They shine up, which provides some light for decorative purposes, but most of it hits a reflector in the top and sent back down. So almost all the light goes down where you want it, not where it shouldn't be. This picture is just one that I took. I couldn't resist because it's directly across the street from Utica Park. This person has 2 bright lights out by the end of their driveway and 6 more on the house. It's quite a lot of light. And something like this, the best way to approach this is put it on a timer. Do you really need that to be lit up at 3 in the morning when no one's driving down that field or down that road? So one of the classic examples of deciding whether something is good lighting or bad is whether you can see the light source. If you're looking at something and you only see the illuminated area, that's good lighting. If you can see the source of the light, that's bad lighting. This is Los Angeles. This picture is taken from, can't remember the name of the hills, some hill just to the south. And so this picture is taken from above, from an altitude, from above the city. And yet look at all the points of light that are visible. Those are all lights that are sending light upwards, that are not doing what they're supposed to do. So what does good lighting look like? There are some examples. If you notice, the illuminated area is visible, not the light source, because they're all cut-off fixtures. This means no glare. Your eyes can dark adapt, and the light that it puts down on the ground is useful. The one on the bottom right is actually a natural gas well. So this type of lighting can even be used for industrial purposes. It's a natural gas well in southern Arizona, which has 5 major observatories and takes light pollution very seriously. Advertising, another really bad example. It's hard to see, but on the left, that's actually a billboard being lit up from below on both sides. And you can see how much of the light doesn't even hit the billboard, just goes straight up. Same thing on the one in the bottom right. Now, there's a couple solutions here. 1, you don't need this much light. 2, the light could be mounted above the billboard, shining down. You might get some reflection off the ground, but not much. And 3, that one on the right, that was at 3 a.m., and on that particular road, the average traffic is at 0 cars per hour. So they're spending money to light up that billboard. No one can see it. I mentioned we'd come back on security lighting. This is the typical security lighting. It's called a wall pack, and they're seen everywhere. You need security lighting, you put that on the side of the building. The problem is they send all their light out. They essentially send light into the face of the police while providing nice dark shadows for bad guys to hide in. Good example right here. There's a guy in that gate. Can't see him. He's there. He's in the shadows. You can't see him because the light's shining in your face. Most of those security studies I mentioned, basically what they prove is that high crime areas are high crime, whether they're well lit or not. Low crime areas are low crime, whether they're well lit or not. So with the security light wall pack, the light goes straight out, 100% glare, shines into the face of law enforcement while it provides a nice place for bad guys to hide. Again, you can't even see the bad guy. He's in gray under the light. wait a second. There he is. Hard to see in that picture. Good security lighting, again, fully shielded. The light doesn't shine out into the face of law enforcement. It lights up the area next to the building where people would want to hide. No glare. It's very simple. Now you can see the bad guy. Now, we used to talk a lot about types of lighting. High-intensity discharge was the most commonly used for street lighting, and mercury vapor and high-pressure sodium were the two most common, and they're easy to tell apart. High-pressure sodium had a peach sort of color, and mercury vapor a bluish color. And the other one that was much less common was low-pressure sodium, which was much more yellow. And the place where you used to see low-pressure sodium was Boston Center, out on Northeastern Boulevard. They had all low-pressure sodium lighting. And as astronomers, we used to prefer low-pressure sodium because it was lower intensity, it was lower wattage for the people that own the lighting, but it was monochromatic. It only put out its light at one wavelength, which we could very easily filter out. All this is moot now because LEDs. LEDs have replaced almost all of that type of lighting and are continuing to replace it. And the only thing you can really do with LEDs besides shielding is color temperature. And the color temperature of a light basically is it's rated in degrees Kelvin. The higher the temperature, the more blue the light. And the simple rule for LEDs is the lower the color temperature, the better the light. You don't want ones that are around 5,000, 6,000. If possible, you should get LED lighting around 3,000, 3,500. It's much less obtrusive on the human eye. And it can be lower intensity. The human eye's sensitivity to light peaks around yellow, which is roughly the color of our sun. We evolved on a planet with a yellow sun. So if you make the light more in the yellow color, you can reduce the intensity and people can still see perfectly fine. Okay, conclusion. Good lighting is the minimum amount required for the purpose. It should be fully cut off or fully shielded so you see a lighted area, not a light source. And if LED, it should be in the warm white range. And talking about light pollution and good lighting is pretty easy because it's what I like to call a win-win-win situation. Good lighting is better for the night sky, it's better for human health, it's better for wildlife, it's more cost effective, it wastes less energy, and it's better for security. There's no area in which bad lighting wins. Any questions? Okay, that concludes my talk.
All right, well, thank you very much. Now, does anybody have questions or comments? No one? Commissioner Shea.
That was a fascinating presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think it's,
One thing I noticed when I gave this talk to the mayor and one of the aldermen, they said several days later that they're now looking at lights at night that they haven't looked at in the same way before. You can now see, oh, that's bad. They did that wrong.
it's like when you're shopping for a car and you want a certain car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere you go. It's like you bring something to mind and it keeps showing up. Yeah, I can see that.
Interestingly, in Tucson, Arizona, which is at the center of all those 5 major observatories, they have very, very strict lighting laws. And prior to the advent of LEDs, they required low-pressure sodium lighting.
Well,
for any,
you should
any
actually answer these at the microphone so it gets.
Sorry. In Tucson, Arizona, where they have all those major observatories and they have very strict light pollution laws, before LEDs, they required low-pressure sodium lighting in all parking lots. And it was very yellow. And the biggest complaint came from car dealerships. They said, you can't see the color properly in this yellow light. But what they found was the yellow light would light up the parking lot, and just the amount of white light that leaked out of the showroom was enough to render the colors perfectly well. So it was illuminate with one type of light, provide color rendering with another type of light, and that worked. And so no one had a problem.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, presentation regarding Navajo Park.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if I'm going to be able to follow up that presentation just as well. But my name is Andrew Morin from the Regenerative Roots Association. We've been developing community farms and associated farm-to-school programs for the past couple of years, along with educational gardens at Nashua High North and Alvern.
My name is William Goulding. I'm also a member of the board of Regenerative Roots. I'm an ag teacher at Alvern. I teach natural resources. And my address, 23 East Dunstable.
And mine is 191 West Hollis Street in Nashua. So recently, we've been reaching out to individuals, both organizations and the city itself, about trying to find a potential area to build a community gardens. We currently run educational garden programs at Nashua High North, and while going there, we noticed that Navajo Park didn't seem like it had been utilized for quite some time. So we had a Ward 1 meeting, went well on Tuesday, was it? A lot of the community members seemed very interested in. Also spoke with Mayor Donchis and the Ward 1 Alderman Tyler GOV about the project. Right now we're simply kind of talking to you about planting the seed about the idea. The one major funding issue that we're trying to resolve is the water infrastructure, because the water infrastructure there currently doesn't look like it's usable. But otherwise, because this would fall under the purview of the Board of Public Works, we just wanted your input, suggestions. We're going to keep working to see if we can find some funding sources, and hopefully our plan was to open this up to 6 to 10 gardeners for next year, similar size to Greeley Park, not raised beds, gardens on the ground, so it can be easily tilled. There was also a few younger individuals that still utilize the space for hockey, so we didn't want to infringe upon that. We also thought that it would be easy to incorporate the programs we're having at Nashua High North, Sustainable Agriculture Summer Internship, and also Will's program at Alvern to hold some education there. Lastly, it did look like there was originally a walking path there. There's approximately 1 acre cleared where the old field was, about 7 acres of forested land that kind of has fallen in disrepair, and we're hoping over the next couple of years to potentially get that nicer again. So that was, I guess, our idea. Didn't know if there was any questions or comments or concerns.
Have you talked to anyone from the Conservation Commission about what their opinion is about this?
Have not talked to the Conservation Commission yet. We thought that we would talk to, I guess, the community first, just to see if they would have a buy-in. We would be more than willing to talk to the Conservation Commission. We're really trying to do an extremely low impact, so we wouldn't be cutting any of the existing trees. There's already a cleared field. And then we'd also be hoping, so long as this pilot project goes good, that in the future we may be able to incorporate some edible perennials like fruit trees, berries, etc., which we feel as though would actually increase the biodiversity of the site in the long term.
Yeah, I'm thinking about pollinators, so.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, we're, at our educational gardens, we currently don't have any beehives just because of allergies, so we're trying to be cognizant of that. But at our community farms, we do work with the Merrimack County Beekeepers Association, and we keep hives there. I think that would be a conversation we'd be more than open, and we have connections to having additional pollinators or a pollinator garden if we didn't keep hives. Oops. Hi, Paul.
Commissioner Shea.
It looks like there's power lines down there, is that right?
There is, yep.
And would there be any potential to kind of expand into that area? Have you talked to the power company about that idea? Have you considered it?
Not 100% sure. In the power lines, it doesn't seem as though the easement is really running over the area that we'd be utilizing.
Yeah.
So there's about 1 acre, and we think that if we had the similar size spots to Greeley Park, that would allow for 3 to 4 years of expansion. And then we would just probably keep the walking path as it is. But I have not looked at what the easement restrictions are per the city. It's a good question.
Yeah. And there's no, so this is like the field area in the north
Kind of in the
side?
gully, like on the right before Broad Street Elementary. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see from the road because there is it is a steep hill and there are a lot of trees, but there is, I would say, a little over 1 acre that's without open because of the baseball fields.
And the neighborhood said it had been about a decade since they've seen pretty much any usage there. Yeah. Oh, that was our Idea, this would fall under our purview for the programming, so we wouldn't be asking the Board of Public Works for any additional money. We are trying to figure out exactly how we can get funds for the water infrastructure, but otherwise this is just an initial presentation just to kind of tell you an idea that we're hoping to effectuate next year.
Commissioner Shea?
I would support budgeting for the infrastructure at this site if we do decide to move forward with the project. That might be putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I think it's a great idea for activating the park. It doesn't look like there's anything there. I also like the idea of having the dual use in the winter. And I have to wonder if we might be able to do double duty as far as water access and being able to flood the field to provide more ice skating rink stuff. I know that a pump that's winter safe and all that is a whole different ball of wax that probably costs a significant amount more. But if there is that active use there and we can enhance that use as well as activate it in the summer, I think that that's worth exploring.
And I know originally we spoke with some old hockey players, and around 20 years ago the city did used to flood it, and then I know the state rep, Tom Lanzera, lives in the neighborhood, and he mentioned that he thought that the city for a little while actually had a truck of water come in once the water infrastructure kind of fell back about 15 to 20 years ago. But admittedly was, I guess, before my time when it comes to this type of stuff.
Yeah, I'd also like to echo Paul. I think you need to have some kind of water infrastructure. My daughter is involved as a garden tender on the Salem Street lot, and it is a particular annoyance that there's not water there. And it's
we
really
don't think
hard.
that it would work without
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's one of our biggest, setbacks is the water.
Other than water infrastructure there, though, there's sufficient sun. We feel as though that we could do some cover crops or whatnot to really incorporate. And the only, I guess, additional ask that we would have from the Board of Public Works is it looks like right now the area is mowed, but if we could have it tilled similarly to the Greeley Street Gardens. So if you just have it tilled for the gardeners each spring would be, I guess, our ask. But from a management standpoint, we would be managing the gardeners, trying to oversee any personal things when you have other people there, ensuring the gardens are taken care of, all organic practices. Yep.
Commissioner Shea?
For water and what you know about the site, is there a main that goes somewhere to the field? I know that a big...
This is the problem, is they think that the main's rusted out. And I think that you'd be able to give me a little bit more input, but they would actually have to run it from the road and cut it down that steep hill. So
that's the big cost item.
That's the big cost.
The new main, and then the additional cost for like the trenching and digging and all that. And then I believe the one building that's on the lot might need to be replaced as well.
And that is a good thing that we thought that we would be able to bring in, and it'd be up to you, either working with the VOTEC departments at the high schools about building a new structure there. We also have a lot of connections with established construction companies. They built the shed that we currently utilize in Nashua High North. The kids at the Alvern Construction CTE just built a shed that was delivered at our community farm site, so we may be able to bring that to the table, at least if we can get the water infrastructure, at least put a house over it.
And I imagine this would require a lease of some sort, and it would go before the Board of Aldermen. Is that how it would be conducted? Like there would be a...
I didn't know if there was going to be maybe a one-year pilot management between the city and Regenerative Roots, or a one-year lease. I was wondering that as well, but we were just kind of figuring out what the community thought about it first. But I wasn't sure about the particulars either.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know that as far as the Rail Trail Community Gardens, there's a lease for that site. I was involved with establishing that.
Yep.
And it was for a number of years. There were certain set of conditions in that lease that I thought were very fair. Like if the project fails, there's a responsibility to restore the site to its previous condition and remove any items, if I don't expect that it will fail. I think that you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, but you just don't, If you don't leave all your stuff there, and if you do, you gotta take it out.
But
or be liable.
having kind of a full drawing and having a lease and some agreement, I think would be desirable in my view.
All right.
Well, thank you
All
very
right, well,
much.
thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for your time, everyone.
All right, we're on to the Parks Department. Item A, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve the sewer service permits and fees as submitted. Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
The motion is to approve the purchase of seasonal dock from Easy Dock of Hudson, New Hampshire in the amount of $28,980.94. Department Urban Programs Fund, CDBG, Activity Sandy Pond Improvements, pending approval of CDBG funds.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. The dock at Sandy Pond is very popular. Currently, right now, the structure is made out of wood. It's pretty dated, starting to, become a hazardous situation, I would call it. It needs to be replaced. I tell you, one of the first groups I met when I came here in February was the Nashua Yacht Club. They came to my office and talked about this specifically. They use Sandy Pond to use their miniature yachts. I see a lot of people fishing there. The thing I like about the dock design is that the outside part of the dock, the railing on it is ADA compliant. I think it would just be a great enhancement, and it's definitely needed. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this topic.
Commissioner Lemon.
Ryan, is the dock that's currently there this big?
No, it is not.
Okay. How much smaller is it? Because I'm just trying to remember the last time I was there, it seemed a lot smaller.
Yes, I would say it's probably about the 2 5x10 pieces. So
Okay.
if you see in the design coming off the walk ramp.
So this would be a substantial improvement for the people who are fishing there.
Yes, it would be.
Okay.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
Is this dock in the water year-round?
I've talked to the people at Easy Dock, and they say, yes, we could leave this in the water year-round. And the thing I like about it is it's the same company that we purchased the kayak ramp at Mayan Falls from, and the dock over at Mayan Falls by Stello Stadium. So I like it because everything's similar component-wise. If anything breaks, it's all interchangeable parts between the different areas.
I understand that ice is a problem for docks. That
Yes.
it's, can be easily damaged.
I guess it's because the water doesn't rise up and down that much at Sandy Pond. So
I see.
I'm talking to them about that. So
So it's not as necessary to pull it out
precisely.
in the fall. Okay.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Yes, Superintendent, so does the cost include the installation, or are we installing it?
No, we would be installing it.
The city will be?
Yes, Parks Department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Shea.
It's nice to see Hudson on here as a supplier. A lot of the business that we end up doing through this board goes to Massachusetts, it seems. Just because there's bigger companies down there that do bigger jobs and all of that. But it's nice to see. Are they like a company that sources these and resell? I'm just curious. If
Yes,
they source
yes.
and resell?
And this is the same company we purchased the dock system for and the kayak launch that we currently have.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, the Engineering Department, item A, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the sewer service permits and fees as submitted.
Hello?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any about the sewer user fees and permits.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Moriarty.
I move to approve change order number 1 with Sunshine Pavement Corporation of Hudson, New Hampshire for the amount not to exceed $125,000 for an increased cost of liquid asphalt cement. Funding, Department 161 Streets. Fund, bond, activity paving.
So Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So this is, as noted, a request for a change order. Liquid asphalt cement is one of the key components of producing hot mix asphalt. Obviously, it's the binder agent. When we bid out our projects, we included an allowance, which we set, for fluctuations in asphalt price, and that allows all contractors to bid without having to speculate on what the market's going to do. This year, the market has increased pretty significantly, so I think this is the first year, at least since I've been here, where we're coming forward with a proposed amendment to increase the cost of a liquid asphalt allowance that we had carried. In fact, this is like a doubling of what we had carried. So what this allowance, is charged against as paving is put down. DOT monthly puts out a list. It describes what the cost is that month as compared to the time of the bid, and then percentages and everything are figured in, how much of that's in the mix, calculates out to what the adjustment is that they're due. So I'd be happy to address any questions.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Commissioner Lemon.
Motion is to approve the construction administration contract for sewer siphons rehabilitation with Hazen and Sawyer PC of Manchester, New Hampshire, in an amount of $192,876. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater. Fund, bond, activity, sewer improvements.
So we brought before you last meeting approval of the contract for this work. We are planning to line 14 of the 22 siphons, which are pipes that run under rivers. They were inspected the year before under one of our CCTV programs, and various issues were found, so they need some attention. This contract is for the engineering company that did the design of that work to support us through construction and inspection and addressing any technical questions as they arise.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, Commissioner Shea.
Now, the motion is to approve a utility trench pavement resurfacing pilot program as proposed by the engineering department.
To advance it? Yeah. Oh, I can take the clicker if it works from here, yeah. Try. Thank you. So this is something that we've been thinking about for a long time. We want to bring forward as a request to consider an alternate restoration for pavement restoration for utility trenches. Next slide. Left click. Guess you're gonna have to, what? Hold the mouse? Yeah. Maybe I'm too far away. Not working, Diane. You're gonna have to. So this is what I hope to talk to you about here today. Just describe the existing requirements, limitations in our existing requirements, what we are asking for approval to do as a pilot program and why, and then address any questions you have. And if you feel free to ask any questions along the way as well. So existing requirements. When utility companies or anybody basically needs to dig our streets to make repairs, what they do is they do that in two phases. The first phase is they dig the street, they make a repair, and then they do a temporary trench restoration. So what that involves is they dig down, like I said, They do the utility work, whatever it is, water, sewer, gas, whatever it is. Replace backfill in the trench. Lots of times it's the material that came for the trench, but it just needs to be clean fill, no organics, no huge rocks and that sort of thing, right? So it's just clean fill, backfill. And then they restore the roadway portion. So the first step here, like I said, is a temporary restoration. So what they need to do is on residential roads, they need to put in a minimum of 8 inches of gravel. On all other roads, arterials and such, 12 inches of gravel. And then they put in a temporary pavement. So this is pavement that's not meant to stay there for, the full duration. It's just to restore travel on the road in a reasonable fashion temporarily until such time it can be fully restored. So the minimum depth of temporary pavement is 2 inches on residential roads, 4 inches on all other roads. Next slide. So then they come back for a phase 2 restoration, which is the final restoration. All this is in accordance with our current ordinances. They are required to do a 3-foot cutback. So they have to go 3 feet beyond the limits of whatever trenching they had done previously in their temporary patch. They go 3 feet beyond that in all directions. Dig down sufficiently to provide an 18-inch gravel road base, and then place pavement. So on our residential roads, 3 inches minimum pavement for final pavement, and all other roads 5 inches. And that work is usually done 30 to 45 days after the temporary work. So go to the next slide in the pictures. I'll just kind of describe what we, well, here's a few pictures. Here's some sample trenches. These are all temporary restorations, so it's, some of the excavations deeper than others, wider than others. Then you do a temporary restoration and have pavement, but of course it's not the greatest pavement because it's temporary. Next slide. So the limitations that we see to this, or what we see as problematic or cumbersome here, is that there's multiple phases of pretty significant disruption. When they come in the first time, they have the backhoes, they got the dump trucks, they got all the stuff required to do this excavation, do the work, hauling in gravels and material, pavement, all that stuff to restore it. Then they go away for a month, month and a half. And the intent is to let it settle, do that sort of thing, right? And then they come back after a month, month and a half, and they do the same thing, except it's even more extensive because they have more width to restore. They go 3 feet wider in every direction and dig up, to the same depth and that whole thing. So it's those disruptions of noise, dust, vibration, traffic detours, parking impacts. You kind of get hit in 2 phases, and so that's probably one of the more significant issues with it. The other issue we have with it is you did a temporary restoration, and you had an interface between the pavement you placed, which was temporary, and the existing pavement, right? Then you come back and you cut around the same thing. You cut all the way through the full pavement depth, and then you restore through the full pavement depth. But what you're left is a joint where the new pavement butts up against the old pavement. And that joint extends all the way from the surface to the bottom of the pavement. So they do the best they can, obviously, tack the joints and rebuild it the best you can. But it's just there's a potential failure plane there where you're introducing opportunity for water to get through that joint. So that's the second concern with our current restoration method. So what we're proposing is an alternate restoration. The phase 1 would stay the same. They go in, they dig down, they make the repair, bring it back up every day. We try every day to get them to put temporary pavement back down. As they're working along a project that they're doing that daily. And then we kind of have 2 final restoration stages. So this phase 2A, on the next slide, Diane, this could be done the same day as the original work if they were geared up to do it that way. If they had the right crew, they could go in, dig up, and then put back the final gravels and pavement and not have to go back and do that again, right? Or it could be done in 2 phases. We've heard from contractors that, they have a pipe crew and they have a dirt crew. So if you got 200 feet of pipe, maybe the first day they come and do 100, next day they do the next 100. They don't want to do this full restoration the same day. But our goal would be before they leave the site or very soon after, have them bring their dirt crew in and do that gravel restoration and thicker pavement restoration. And that pavement under Phase 1A would be what's intended to be the final pavement. So it's placed and would stay there. And then you would do a Phase 2B. And this 2B would just be a milling and a paving operation. So like we currently do the cutbacks for trenches, you would mill beyond the limits. You would mill the pavement beyond the limits of your restored trench. And then you would repave that. And the benefit of this is a one-day, usually in and out operation. They bring in a milling machine and paving, run down, mill it, pave it, end of the day they're gone. So it's like a one-day operation. It's not multiple days of interruptions with gravel trucks and all that sort of thing, right? It's recognized that one of the reasons that we do the two-phase now is that some trenches settle. And that can vary. If we have a sewer trench 12 feet deep, that's probably going to settle more than a gas trench 3 feet deep, right? So not all things are created equal. But this, in this paving operation, the milling and the paving will address any minor settlement. If there was major settlement, they probably have to do something more to address that. And this alternate, this is one of the things we want to pilot it for. It may not be appropriate to use this in all cases. Maybe this isn't the process to use on a deep sewer trench, but it is on a gas trench or, water service or the smaller, less deep trenches. That's one of the things we want to kind of try in a couple alternatives here and see how it works over time, right? But this milling and paving, as I said, it goes beyond the limits. So then you have a stepped joint where you have the thicker pavement and the thicker pavement and the original thicker pavement, they butt up. But then that joint doesn't go all the way to the surface. You have to step over because you milled beyond, and there's a joint just in the wearing course pavement. So it's what they call a step joint. And that, we believe, provides more robust plane against intrusion of water. So next slide, Diane. Here's a couple examples. These are details that we've developed and modeled after some other communities, but and they're a little hard to see, I apologize, but your milling limits, you would do 3 feet beyond, but then you would also pick the limits based upon the condition. Like what we want to avoid is we want to avoid having these joints right in wheel paths of vehicles. And some of this is kind of alluded to in our moratorium requirements. By the way, this wouldn't address any of the moratorium issues. We would still do moratoriums like we currently do them. This would be for non-moratoriums, or they'd have to mill beyond to meet the moratorium requirements. But in patches, what we want to do is mill to places that make sense to stop. So you want to, depending on where your cut was, you'd want to mill to the center of a lane or to a lane line, or keep the milling within the shoulder if you can, to avoid that situation, as I said, having pavement joints in the middle of wheel paths, which is a stressor for the joint. So next slide, yeah, here's just a picture of a milling and a paving. You can see, come in, you've probably all seen this by now. Milling machine comes in, mills out, and paves. And there's all scale of millers. This is a fairly large one for a full lane. They make smaller ones for smaller areas, different types of equipment. So next slide, yeah, as I said, talked about some of the benefits. One of the things that's consistent with neighboring communities, Matt Franz, senior staff engineer, is here. I'm going to have him come up and just talk a little bit. He reached out to Concord and got their feedback on their current requirements, which is this is similarly modeled after.
I am Matthew Franz, Senior Staff Engineer, City of Nashua. Yes, I was able to speak to the City of Concord representative about results they've had with these details. Of course, their intent was similar to ours, was to avoid a single plane of failure from the road surface down to the bottom of the base materials. And they've had great success with it. Some hurdles that they've crossed, the length of settlement time between the original restoration and the milling, they found that wintering over results in better success as opposed to the same year restoration. So I think it's one consideration that we'll take into account because it's always about the better product for the roads. Another fact they found was that the utility companies really kind of just adjusted to the process. They've been worrisome as we talk about it with them, but they put together the crews to perform the final restoration for the most part during the initial phase of construction, so it saved that second opening of the road, which is something that would be, very beneficial to the disruption of the public. So I think the city of Concord was very adamant about the decreased amount of construction time, and I think it was a benefit we could benefit from. So.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so I mean, our 3-foot overcut and all that detail was beneficial, particularly when we had, frankly, had some pretty poor pavement and that sort of thing. Now we've done a lot better job of catching up on our paving needs, and we have streets in better condition. I think the need to go do these wider overcuts, that need is diminished due to the improvements we made. So as we said, speeds up construction, less disruption. We believe it'll improve the road performance over time. I think we'll have joints that'll perform better. Water is a road killer. I mean, if water gets in under the road and freezes, and that's definitely a road killer. So we think this will do better about avoiding that. And and it should expedite the whole process. So again, this is something that we are asking for approval from the board to do as a pilot program. We would anticipate implementing this. This construction season is winding down. Maybe we try this in a couple of locations this year, but next year we could try it in more locations, and then come back in year and a half, couple of years, whatever it is, and report back to you on what we've seen for performance before. If things perform as well as we would hope they would, eventually maybe this would lead to ordinance changes and that sort of thing. But at this point, we're asking to do this as a pilot program, which the board has authority to do under the ordinances. And I'd be happy to address any questions.
Anyone? Commissioner Shoneman.
I just need to make sure I understand what you're asking for here, not being really my bailiwick. So when the utility company comes in, phase one, they dig everything out, do the repair, fill it up, and put a temporary patch over what they dug. And then they come back at some time later after all the settling has happened, and then they dig up quite a lot again. Refill it, repave it, the permanent patch. And what you're proposing is phase one would be the same, but there would be sort of a 1B where they do all of the refilling. And when they come back for 2A or 1B.
2B, a 2A and a 2B, yes.
2A and 2B,
Yeah.
first they go in and they don't dig it all up again,
Correct.
but they just mill off the top.
Just mill off the top and pave. And then it's a paving operation. It's not a dirt crew. It's just a paving operation. And our hope would be they do a number of trenches, maybe they overwinter, they hire somebody to come in and restore a bunch of trenches in the same time frame, and then you got a real paving crew basically doing this work. And that's another reason we believe we would have better performance. But no, you've described it correctly. I mean, the big changes here are not doing the 3-foot cutbacks in all directions, so that's reducing the area, so that's one thing in terms of the gravel work. But then we will end up having the same footprint restored with the paving work, with the final wearing course paving.
Okay. And the other change would be that when they do the final patch, they're more intentional about not putting joints where the wheels travel in that lane.
Correct, yeah, that'll require some coordination with us, of course, but we'll develop some details. These details are close, but they need a little refinement. But we'll have guidance details to provide them, and our inspectors, of course, will work with them as well, but basically establishing what those limits need to be so that we don't end up in the situation, if we can avoid it, with joints and wheel paths. And the benefit, one of the benefits, I mean, not only not having two separate phases of disruption, hopefully, or if we do, at least very limited separation in time. The other benefit will be dealing with temporary trenches for a shorter duration, because right now they know they're gonna have to come back, they're gonna have to dig everything up, and redo it all anyway. So, you know, hopefully they do a good job, but they're meeting the requirements, and we get variable performance in the temporary trenches, I'd say. Hopefully, under this scenario, when they know they're gonna do the phase 2A sooner, you know, we'll get that better, fuller, deeper pavement and product sooner, and that will hold up better during that duration until we get the final mill. And the 2B part, the final mill and wearing course paving.
Okay.
Commissioner Shea?
I appreciate the way that this department and you are always looking to do things better to improve the process and improve the way that we serve the community. I think it would be really easy to just stick with what has always been done. And so I just wanted to make that remark and let you know I appreciate the effort. And thank you for the presentation.
No, I really appreciate that. We do that, and we try to do it, you know, with our eyes wide open. I mean, we talk to other communities, we research online. There's been some studies, too, that have shown that this step joint performs better than, you know, this straight-through joint. And, I mean, it intuitively makes sense to me, but then we've done homework and reached out to others. One of the people we talked to in Concord actually was a former inspector here in Nashua, and so he was fully familiar with what we do, and now he's fully familiar with what Concord does, and basically affirmed what our intuition was that it's a better process that they have in Concord right now with this alternate method.
Just to follow up, and how long would you expect the pilot program to go for? How long do you need to really assess this?
I think we need at least till the end of the next construction season. I mean, there's some things that maybe we wouldn't fully understand, like by the end of next season, but we could report back at the end of next season. Matt spoke to the overwintering, and that's something that we're going to have to see. I can understand that does make sense. You know, if they're using it for all their trenches, including their deeper excavations, I certainly can see how you'd have a settlement and a crack at that location, the edge of the trench. So I can see why it would make sense to wait and do the milling and paving on that. So we kind of got to try a couple different scenarios. We'll try this on one of the deeper excavations. We'll try it on, I assume, quite a few of the smaller ones, and then just see how that all performs.
Thank you.
And then hopefully, again, be in a position to report favorable results and be able to codify the changes so they're there for the future.
Commissioner Lemon?
So I think this sounds like a really good idea. Do you have information from Concord about, is this a wash in terms of cost? Is it a lot less? What's the deal?
Well, it's funny you mention that. I mean, there's a couple other things that I didn't talk about today, but that are in our mind. One of the things that Concord does is they have a pavement damage fee system, which is something that if we have a successful pilot program here, it's something we might want to consider as well. Contractors, this reduces the amount of work, essentially. I mean, it reduces the number of phases, so that costs them more to remobilize, so maybe that's a trade-off. But the extra width, I mean, if you have a trench and you're going 3 feet on this side, 3 feet on that side, that's, 6 feet of additional gravels and pavement and everything else. That comes at a large expense. And we constantly get, feedback from the utilities that what we're doing is, excessive compared to other communities. So they would experience cost savings going with this detail. But we might want to consider implementing a damage fee system similar to what Concord has. Manchester has one as well. In Concord and Manchester as well, I think it's the same pricing, but they pay like a $5 per square foot cost for impact. So areas get measured and they pay $5 per square foot. For the in-roadway stuff and sidewalks and out of the roadway, they pay $2.50 a square foot. And they also have a sliding scale, which we could also consider implementing, where newer pavements, the fee is much higher, so that's a huge disincentive to people to cut newer pavement, a financial disincentive. So those are all things that, we also want to consider and talk to the board about as we move forward with these changes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we have item E, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the street opening permits issued for streets in moratorium.
Any discussion, questions? Commissioner Schoeneman.
Am I correct in thinking that the way that this works is the utility companies are trying to work with the city to inspect the water lines and the gas lines before the paving is done in an effort to prevent digging into roads that are in moratorium? Is that right?
That is right, yes. We described previously, we give them the list of all the roads that we're planning to pave. If they have major, gas main work, water main work to do, we'll defer paving on some streets so they can do that. But we look for their clearance. They say, no, our gas main's good, our water main's good. They go out and they do leak detection. They have the vans and whatever, sniffing along the roadway, I guess. And if they find any leaks or issues, they repair those prior to paving. So yeah, that is the process that we attempt to do to avoid cutting into moratorium pavement.
So all of the roads that have been recently paved have been inspected before they were paved.
Yes.
When you look at this list, grade 1 gas leaks are being found everywhere. I believe our packet said that 77 street opening permits were issued just this month. My question is why somebody's not doing their job. If they're going in and inspecting all the lines before paving, why are we coming up with 77 reasons to dig into the brand new road again, barely a year later? Maybe that's a question that you would like somebody else to field.
No, it's a fair question. I mean, the 77 street opening permits, I assume those were not all excavations in moratorium streets. So that's all the work happening on all of our streets. So a lot of them are pavement that's older. So that's one point of clarification I would make. But no, I mean, why do leaks occur? I don't know. All I can tell you is we do coordinate with them. They do pre-inspection, pre-paving inspection as noted. They've been in here and they've said the same thing. They've explained their process. And then we pave and then there are leaks. How many is this compared to all the paving we do? I mean, perhaps these are all over the city, but certainly not all the roads that we paved. We do a lot of paving, so it doesn't surprise me that we would have some leaks after the fact. I don't know why exactly leaks occur. I don't know what the factors are, but we are going to have situations where we got to go back and cut new pavement, and it's unfortunate, but will happen. And the more paving that we do, we're going to have more and more of that. I mean, we're paving a significant portion of the city, and it's good to do, but I see this as unavoidable, unfortunately. This month, there seems to be quite a few more than there are other months. I don't know why that is. I don't know if they're doing their final checks before the season ends and they're trying to make sure they catch things. I don't know what the situation is, but it's something that we can continue to discuss with them. But we're in the process right now. We've finalized in our paving list, candidate paving list, I'll say, for the next 2 years, and from that list will come out next year's paving list. But in the interim, before we go to bid, we'll be going through this with Pennachuck and Liberty again, having them screen all those roads and provide back to us feedback that they're good candidates for paving.
Okay, my final comment is that we're digging into roads that are brand new. It's a waste. It reduces the life of our roads, as we've seen over and over again. And when the members of this board voted to take away our job of oversight in this area, to be able to say yes or no to digging into a new road, we've really relegated our role from oversight to afterthought. And I think that's a shame. That's all.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I would note that 7 of these 10 are grade 1 leaks, which never came to the board. Those get fixed immediately. You would have been, like this, you would have been informed of those previously, so you wouldn't have had an opportunity to look at them ahead of time. But I understand what you're saying. But this, we're working under the current approval. Of course, we'll see what happens next year. I'm sure next year they'll be looking for a similar approval, and we can certainly have that discussion again at that time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Next, wastewater. There's a motion, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the user warrants as presented.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we're on to the director's report. So I will turn it over to Director Photo.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this first slide is a sewer replacement project. On July 28th, our contractor, SUR West, installed an 8-inch cross-country sewer pipe between Daniel Webster Highway and Revere College. And the sewer is located directly under an existing storm drain pipe. This is a picture of a collapsed sewer pipe that was discovered on Wellman Ave via our CCTV that was completed by wastewater on August 16th, and a point repair is being scheduled for that. This is the paving of Lamplighter Drive. On August 4th, Sunshine Paving paved the binder course. On August 3rd, Sunshine Paving reclaimed Morris Street. The reclaim process consists of pulverizing the existing asphalt, removing excess material, regrading, and compacting the roadway. This is on August 5th, our contractor Indus fog sealed Somerset Parkway. And this was done in an effort to preserve the existing asphalt and prolong its life. On August 3rd, contractor Beckham Bellucci installed a temporary bridge in Mine Falls Park near Nashua High South. The temporary bridge will remain in place until a permanent bridge is designed, manufactured, and installed. The engineering department and the Nashua Regional Planning Commission recently completed a citywide inventory and assessment of pedestrian infrastructure on August 12th. This work is part of an effort to improve compliance with the American Disabilities Act requirements and support development of a comprehensive ADA transition plan, which will be the next step. We had a huge crowd at Brewfest this year. About 2,500 people attended at this sponsored event. It ran from 12 to 5 at Holman Stadium. The weather was hot, and there were many tasty offerings, and there were food trucks and 4 additional food vendors that were there. So, as always, it was a huge success. Our next big event is scheduled for Saturday, September 17th from 10 to 2 at the Nashua Airport. Wheels and Wings is always a big favorite amongst kids. There'll be an ice cream truck and other food trucks, and as well as trucks, buses, and planes. So there'll be a lot to see. There will also be a non-perishable food donation location to support 68 hours of hunger. So. Our pools have started closing for the season, unfortunately. Centennial's final day was on Friday, August 19th. Crown Hill closed on August 20th. And the last day for Rotary will be Saturday, August 27th. We had a great year, saw lots of residents, we had a lot of positive feedback. We're really excited the pools are open. And we had some problems, as I had mentioned in previous meetings with the kiddie pool at Greeley Park. The pool floor was deteriorating. It's a very expensive fix, so we patched it with a new coating, and this allowed us to keep the pool open. And the wading pool will be open through Labor Day. Street crews are working to replace the basketball court surface at Phil's Grove Park, which is badly needed. And once the court's been replaced, we'll be putting in new nets as well. Crews are reconstructing Atherton Park. The park's been grubbed out and it's currently being graded. A completion date has not been set. We will have a new soccer field. We're hopeful to also have a playground. There will also be a parking area. We've had a lot of complaints about folks parking on the street, so that will be another positive thing. But we expect some of the work to continue into the spring. This is just a picture of our chlorine contact chambers. These tanks are taken down a minimum of annually at the wastewater facility. And here you can see crews removing solids from the bottom. You'll probably remember approving a trailer-mounted fall protection unit for the wastewater facility. This was received and is currently on site, and the crews are receiving training on how to use it properly. And the next household hazardous waste collection will be held on Saturday, October 8th from 8 to noon at Crown Street. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Director. Next on the agenda will be commissioner comments. Are there any comments by commissioners? Commissioner Shea?
So I had a constituent reach out about the Atherton Park project to make a request, and the request was to consider, I guess there's like kind of a desire line going up the hill to maybe Perham Street. Is that I think that's the one that wraps around up the hill on the backside of the park. And so I understand that residents who live up there will cut down the hill to go to the park, and the suggestion was look at maybe establishing a actual kind of set of stairs or something like that. And so if it would be possible to examine that
Absolutely.
as we do all these renovations, I think folks up the hill would appreciate it.
We will definitely look at that.
Yeah, I think that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Okay, other comments? If none, we'll move on to personnel. Item A, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion is to accept the retirement of Dan Odierno, truck driver, effective August 19th, 2022.
That is the motion. Director Furlow, anything you need to add or no? Okay, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to accept the resignation of Jake Kuto, truck driver, effective August 23rd, 2022. Did I get Jake's name right?
Yep.
Oh, good.
All right. Thank you for the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Shoneman.
Move to accept the resignation of Thomas Hudson, process chemist at the wastewater treatment facility, effective August 3, 2022.
Okay, thank you for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item number D, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion was tabled from the meeting of 7/28/22 to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of June 16th, 2022.
Thank you for the motion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Last on the agenda, it looks like motion number E, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of July 28th, 2022.
Great. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no one. Thank you, that passes. There is no non-public session, so all we need is a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Lennon.
I motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, that is the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that concludes our meeting.